What's going on, guys? What is this, hour 2.5? Feeling good? Feeling good?
We're feeling good.
All right, I like it, I like it. Well, like I said, my name is Brendan Metz. Unlike many people, I have a lot of experience with autism. My brother was actually diagnosed at a very young age, but I mean, really, this wasn't that big of a deal to me. I mean, I knew he really loves the Beatles and really hated all the noise at our elementary school pep rallies. I mean, this is all good to me. I also love the Beatles, as do all of you, whether you recognize it or not. And I really didn't see a point in an elementary school pep rally, so kind of whatever. As I kept getting older, though, I started to realize that other kids had similar differences in their behavior to my brother's. It was then I started hearing the word autism being used to describe those differences in behavior. And still, I mean, wasn't that life-changing? Really, I'd heard other words before: tall, short, skinny, fat. I mean, I knew that surely my brother and these other kids were much more than, just these words used to describe their behavior. What I began realizing, though, is that not everyone really shared this realization with me. Some people get really hung up on words like autism, and I think that's for the simple reason of not understanding them. So, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm here to help you guys along your way in understanding autism. Now, there's a psychologist by the name of Tony Attwood, and in a lot of the talks he gives, he likes to present his audiences with a simple question. So, here goes. How do you cure autism? Cure it. What Attwood says you do is you take the person, you put them in a room with something they like, and then you just leave them alone. Really, if you think about it, it's only when we start introducing other people into the mix that we start noticing that some people act differently than others. So that brings us to the point. Just what are these differences? Well, according to the DSM-5, think of it as the big book of psychological disorders mental health professionals use for stuff. According to the DSM-5, there are two core components to autism. The first is a marked deficiency in social communication. What is that? Well, this is things like having a hard time with verbal communication. Maybe your grammar doesn't add up, the flow of your sentences and your conversations isn't really working. It's having a hard time with nonverbal communication, not recognizing when someone's smiling or frowning or that they're using their body to help them make a point. It's also not picking up on certain social cues. Maybe you're in a conversation about trains, you're talking about birds, things like that. The other core component is restrictive behavior. Now, many people with autism love their routines. They love being certain places, certain times, not deviating from that. Others have really narrow interests. We might even describe them as obsessions, things that they really, really like. All they ever really seem to talk about is that one particular subject. Others really like repetitive movements or speech patterns. Someone might really like doing this. So whenever they get the chance, and just do this. Nothing more than it, just feels good. So that's all diagnostic criteria. But there's two other really important things to know about autism, and that's the first of which is that autism is a very intrinsically unique disorder. There's not one uniform brain with autism. Even though the information I just gave you from the DSM-5, that is literally professional quality information. When you're trying to understand one particular person, that's a very 20,000 feet above kind of view of it. What autism really is, it's a big group of disorders. We call it a spectrum. And that's because different people with autism could look very different. You could have one person who just has a little bit of trouble getting the words out. You could have another who, can't talk at all under autism spectrum disorder. Now, the other thing, and I think this is just awesome, is as of very recently, only the DSM-5 coming out, we don't classify autism in terms of severity, like 1 to 10, like an earthquake. What we classify it in terms of is the levels of support that person would need to, live independently and live life the way they want to. You got require a little support, require a lot of support. And I think this is just awesome, because people are people, not earthquakes. So with that, I guess that's kind of it. I followed that TED Talk formula, gave you that personal example, enigmatic professional guy, gritty facts, Well, there's one thing I think that a lot of people don't consider when they're trying to understand autism, and that is the classic conflict between won't versus can't. Let's go back to our room, ladies and gentlemen. So in our room, let's say we got a little girl. She's sitting in there, got a little Flint Hill issued iPad, and she's looking up all the information she can about guitars. Loves guitars. All she ever talks about is guitars. So you walk in, you got to tell her something. So you walk in, start having a conversation, and she starts going on about guitars. Oh, hey, man, you check out that 1964 Gretsch Electromatic George Harrison uses at Shea Stadium? You're like, oh, wow, yeah, cool. So, you still got to say your thing, so you kind of start trying to subtly shift the conversation into whatever it is, the topic that you have to say. Shouldn't really seem to be budging. You start straight up saying what it is that you need to say. Doesn't really seem like she's listening, She's still talking about guitars, not really acknowledging what it is that you're saying. Now, there's two ways of looking at this. One, she's one of those annoying music types that only wants to talk about how sweet Bruce Springsteen's yellow Telecaster is. Maybe make a good birthday present to available at Guitar Center down the street. Something like that. In this case, she won't listen. Maybe, though. Maybe she can't. Maybe she has a really hard time understanding those very subtle changes in the conversation, changes in topic that we all take for granted every day. Maybe she has a really hard time understanding when it is that she needs to stop saying her thing and let you say yours. Won't versus can is a very powerful tool, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you take what you learned a little bit before and what you learned with won't versus can't and really consider. Next time you see someone who's a little off, a little aloof, maybe consider. Because it's the difference between writing someone off as annoying, obnoxious, rude, and, hearing them out, hearing what they had to say. Make a new friend. The very last thing I want to add is the importance of not trivializing stuff like this. It's easy to do. You compare your actions, the actions of others, to autism with words like autistic or maybe some metaphors. And, I don't know. I don't really think it's all that cool. It's not. Autistic really isn't a synonym for silly or something, whatever word you might use it as. And, it really is something that is very prevalent and a lot of people struggle with. So yeah, that's all I got for you, ladies and gentlemen. You have a good one. Thank you.